The movie begins with a fight that gets someone killed, which is being recorded by an inmate. Kyle LeBlanc is an American working overseas in Magnitogorsk, Russia. When, over the phone, he hears his wife being attacked as he drives suddenly and rushes home, but it becomes too late to save her. Kyle rushes home and sees his wife's lifeless body. Sergio Kovic, the man who raped and murdered her, hits Kyle with an object and runs off from his home. Kyle runs after him as they fight. Kyle gets run over by a motorcycle which fractures his arm. The police arrive and arrest Kyle as he alerts them that Sergio is the killer while he runs off. Sergio is later found not guilty because he buys the judge over. The judge rules that due to lack of evidence he is set free. He comes in front of Kyle out of excitement. Enraged, Kyle steals a gun from a bailiff and shoots Sergio multiple times in front of the entire courthouse, killing him. For this, he is sentenced to life in prison without parole. He is taken to Krab prison, which is run by the corrupt warden, General Ryskov. As they arrive, some old prisoners get excited. The Ryskov and his guards bring a wounded prisoner who tries to escape but is captured and tells them the implication of attempting to escape. Kyle is told to give up his wedding ring, which he refuses to do. He is hit by Lieutenant Tolik and forcefully removes the ring from his finger. As he is questioned by the prison guard, he sees Tolik wearing his wedding ring. While in cell, he brings out his wife's picture and remembers their good time swimming. The same night, he witnesses a fellow 21-year-old American inmate named Billy Cooper being taken to another cell by the guards to be raped by prison fighter and member of the Russian mafia, Andrei. They all hear Billy scream as this makes Kyle and other inmates uncomfortable. The next morning, Billy is traumatized. Kyle comes across the cell room and sees Billy's condition. Kyle looks at Andrei with anger as he poses like his wife's killer Sergio, which he remembers. Andrei pushes him off as brawl breaks off between both. The prison guard stops the fight. Kyle is put in a solitary confinement. In solitary, he goes on a hunger strike and then tries to hang himself to commit suicide, but both fail. He hits his head on the cell wall and falls. He sees a butterfly and gets a flashback of when his wife told him not to kill a butterfly inside their home. He gets more flashback of both of them and he realizes he must survive. He hears a scream of another prisoner in another solitary cell who hits on the wall. Kyle hits back and tells him to be quiet. He then starts to eat as the butterfly flies around. Eventually, he is transferred to a cell with inmate 451, an African-American prisoner with a reputation for killing his cellmates, something the sadistic chief of the guards Tolik believes he will do to Kyle. He later tells Kyle that if he wants to change cell, then he will indicate meaning with the right price. He is later pushed inside the cell with 451. Kyle looks and observes 451 with fear and skepticism. 451 behaves in a weird and mysterious way by ignoring Kyle. Bob, Kyle's wife's brother, visits him in prison and tells him that he can pay the prison guards for his release. Kyle and Tolik look at each other. During their recreational time when they are playing basketball, Andrei sees Kyle and tries to throw and hit him with the ball but accidentally misses and the ball hits on another inmate. This brings confrontation between both, but Tolik intervenes. He soon meets Billy in the prison yard, who explains he is serving a 1.5-year sentence for driving whilst intoxicated and crashing into a restaurant with a girl he met. He also meets Malachi, another American prisoner bound to a wheelchair, who tells Kyle that he saw him in a newspaper shoot and kill Sergio, his wife's killer, in the court premises. Kyle asks Malachi about the man that wants to throw him the ball. Malachi goes further and explains the politics of the prison and the gangs within it, including the Russian mafia's alliance with the guards. Malachi assures Kyle that he is the man to meet of his needs anytime. He also tells Kyle to bribe the guards and get out from the cell where 451 is. That night he dreams about his wife's murder and was having nightmare. 451 attempts to suffocate him but later relents. Kyle meets Tolik and gives him money for change of cell, but Tolik wants more, telling him that America is very expensive. Kyle says he will get more as Tolik leaves, telling him when he is ready. General Ryskov gambles by betting on fights between rival gangs. Andrei fights with one of the rival gangs. The fight frightens Kyle as he watches. Billy leaves the fight scene out of fear. Andrei wins. Kyle asks Malachi if his cellmate 451 fights. Malachi says that the reason he is kept alive is that the guards make money from him by putting those that they don't like in the cell with him to get eliminated. Kyle is seen beaten up by Andrei gang in retaliation of what happened between him and Andrei. Later he is taken back to the solitary confinement. He sees the butterfly again. This time he grows bears and his wife's memory resurfaces again. He hears a prisoner in the other solitary confinement cell taken out for a fight. He gets bullied by Andrei and one of his gang members. Inside his cell, he reads one of 451's controversial quotes in his absence but later gets caught by 451. They look at each other as Kyle leaves. Andrei touches Kyle in the refectory and tells him that they will see tonight. Kyle confronts and fights Andrei. Both of them brawl. Kyle later gets overpowered by Andrei's men. Tolik stops the fight and drags Kyle out. He is taken back into the solitary confinement. They see a land mine and it explodes a car unaware of it. Bill and his fellow American tries to escape. The American gets shot and killed. Bill continues with his escape adventure as the prison guards run after him. He later gets caught and taken to Andrei. Kyle, who is constantly bullied by Andrei and his goons, begins training himself for these fights, but his motivation concerns and disturbs 451. In his first match, Kyle faces Andrei and, despite the Russian fighter's experience, although he gets well beaten by Andrei but manages to win by savagely biting a large chunk out of Andrei's neck, killing him in agony. He immediately suffers a mental breakdown while covered in Andrei's blood as the prisoners and guards watch in horror. Throughout his time, he continuously fights and wins other prisoners and begins to accept his sentence, becoming hardened by his environment and losing himself while also gaining respect. The generals see that Kyle is a very good fighter and Ryzhkov tells his fellow general to bring the best fighter from his prison. He continues with his rage fighting other prison contenders. Billy becomes skeptical of Kyle with his brutality. He wins a fight but 451 looks at him and says you think you win but you lose yourself by playing their games. Billy and Malachi realizes that Kyle has lost himself. 451 looks at him in the cell and asks him if he knows himself and says probably not. Kyle denies any help from his brother-in-law or the American embassy, feeling that nothing will change, and loses hope of ever being released. Meanwhile, Billy, fed up with the physical and sexual abuse he is subjected to, wants to escape the second time. During Russian Independence Day, Malachi secretly gives Billy the key to escape. An inmate from another prison, Volya, confronts Kyle with a handshake which he holds tight. Volya is unwilling to release his hand but his gang member forces him to. Sneaking off during the Russian Independence Day celebrations, the escape plan fails as he gets caught again. He is taken to Tolik, who threatens and beat him not to attempt escape again since he makes money for him. He is betrayed by Malachi, who informs the guards. Malachi is seen paid by the guards the medication that he needs to treat himself. 451 sees everything through a ventilation fan. After being locked in a cell with prison fighter Volya, overnight to be raped, Billy spits on Volya's face and is beaten to within an inch of his life. Tolik and other guards does not approve of Volya's action as he is told to get out from the cell by Tolik. Billy eventually succumbs to his injuries. Kyle passes by and sees Billy badly wounded. Tolik orders Billy to be taken to the infirmary. Kyle tries to enter the cell but Tolik holds him and later allows him to pass. But before he dies, he advises Kyle not to let the prison, guards, or inmates make him into something he's not. He refuses to fight Volya in his next match by squatting as he gets kicked and punched by Volya and as a result is hung by his arms outside for all to see. 451 buys flammable liquid from Malachi and pours it on his whole body in retaliation of what he did to Billy. Malachi pleads but 451 sets him alight. As he watches Malachi burn to death, he recalls memories of being abused and molested as a child by a teacher and then setting the said teacher on fire. However, seeing Kyle's courage and his ability to stay strong during his long punishment, the prison gangs decide to put aside their rivalries and unite, following suit by refusing to fight when Ryzhkov commands it by the two rival gangs. Tolik asks an inmate to bring Volya but he refuses. Tolik tells General Ryzhkov that no one wants a fight. Ryzhkov gets annoyed. Tolik tells Ryzhkov to execute Kyle publicly but Ryzhkov refuses, saying that if he is shot publicly he becomes a martyr. Kyle is released soon from his restraints and sent to the infirmary. During his recovery, he dreams of his wife who tells him that nobody's ever gone as long as there is someone to remember them. Sometime after Kyle has recovered, he is taken to his solitary cell block, where he is confronted by General Ryzhkov, who is frustrated at his authority being challenged in the presence of inmates. He informs Kyle he only wants one last fight and forces him to face Milik, a gargantuan prisoner kept separate from the general population whom Kyle kept hearing through the walls from his time in solitary confinement. 451 agitates. Milik attacks Kyle. 451 starts praying in his cell with candle lights. Kyle knocks on the wall but Milik fails to recognize him the first time and put him down. During the fight, Milik throws him around but Kyle knocks on a door the second time repeatedly, making Milik recognize him. As this was his only form of communication, Milik embraces him as a friend and this baffles Ryzhkov and the guards. Tolik orders them to continue the fight at gunpoint. Kyle demands the guards kill him instead, stating he will not fight anymore. Witnessing this, the prisoners begin to protest, resulting in Kyle and Milik turning the tables. Milik is fatally shot protecting Kyle. Milik, despite getting shot, manages to fight the guards along with Kyle. This ignites a full-scale riot and cell breaks. Milik succumbs to his bullet wounds as Kyle comforts him. Kyle breaks 451 cell. The prison guards put everything under control. 451 tells Kyle that all his cellmates that he has killed talk much and you don't waste words, better keep your mouth shut if there is nothing to say. Kyle reveals to 451 that someone killed his wife and he became a beast for this. 451 agrees to assist Kyle to escape from the prison. He brings out a record book from inside the cell wall and shows it to Kyle that contain evidence of all the murders and corruption that has happened in the prison for over 20 years. He convinces Kyle for one last fight and reveals to him that once he fights they'll shoot him. He has planned to expose all to the United States government. While the guards get the prisoners under control following the riot, 7 inmates got shot and killed, including one notorious gang leader. Hushgroff tells Tolik to kill Kyle whether he wins or loses the fight with Val. During the fight, 451 watches with anxiety as both beat each other. Kyle later gains the upper hand and dislocates Valya's shoulder. 451 leaves the fight scene for the escape plan. An enraged Valya pulls a knife and attempts to stab him, only to accidentally stab the leader of the Russian mafia with Kyle's involvement, killing him. Stating it as retribution for Billy's death, Kyle then uses this opportunity to smash Valya's head into a pole. Kyle is then escorted away by the guards to be killed. 451 launches an attack and kill one of them. While Kyle holds Tolik at gunpoint and pins him underneath a car, he takes the key to free himself, as well as retrieving his wedding ring. Tolik tells him that he is making a big mistake, but Kyle closes his mouth with a cloth and releases a car levered by a jack that falls and damages Tolik's legs as he screams. Kyle takes one of the guards' uniforms brought by 451 to disguise. Thinking 451 will come along, 451 refuses, saying this is his home, and gives him the secret documents. Kyle drives off in one of their cars, while 451 stays behind to assassinate General Ryskov for his misdeeds. Kyle successfully drives past the guards as they open the gates and salute, taking him for a superior. 451 successfully kills General Ryskov by ripping his tongue out with pliers. Kyle puts his wife's picture in the car mirror after the escape. 451 is last seen being escorted away by the guards, with his final fate left unknown. Kyle manages to return to the United States and exposes Krab's corruption, and 3 months later, the prison is shut down. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please click the like subscribe button for more.